If you've been telling yourself you'll change, but you haven't actually changed just yet, this conversation is for you.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion, my words got power, my thoughts have action, motivation, stay gracious, that's greatness, be audacious, motivation, be audacious, innovation, be audacious, inspiration, be bold, motivation, be audacious.
Started getting to around 28, I was maxed out at 367 pounds, and I'm only 5'7". So that I was a pretty big boy. These things, I was a mess. I woke up and I was thinking about it. I'm done. I'm going to start making changes in my life right now.
Okay. What was the trigger? What made you come out so definitively and say this is
Fed
what
up. Fed up.
Because at some point, you've got to stop negotiating with your life and start deciding. This podcast is all about helping you unlock your inner greatness and live your best audacious life. And today's guest is Stanley Bronstein. He's a CPA, attorney, and someone who's made a complete life shift after realizing the path he was on wasn't going to end well. You know, he went from 300 pounds to losing more than 220 of it. But more importantly, he rebuilt his mindset, his habits, and his standards. And I'm going to be real with you. While we were talking, I kept coming back to this thought or idea that it's not that change is hard. It's that we stay stuck in patterns we're no longer willing to challenge. And the moment, here's the thing, because the moment we do, everything starts to move. And that definitely was Stanley's story. There's a lot in this one, folks, and you'll definitely get some real cool insights. And so without any further ado, here's my chat with Stanley. Enjoy. Hey, Stanley, how you doing, man? Thanks for being here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
I'm doing fine today. Thank you for having me.
It's great to be able to connect with individuals. For me, it really is about encouraging individuals to live their best audacious lives, as we say here. I think a really important aspect of that is understanding that, we're all on a pathway, right, Stanley? We're all kind of going through the motions and going through life. No one has all of the answers in the moment. We're just figuring out. Sometimes we know what to do, sometimes we don't. But the key is taking action and doing what we can within the best of our ability. And so all those things, I think, it makes a great opportunity for a fantastic dialogue. And so maybe as a starting point, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience and sort of talk about the work that you do.
Hey, my name's Stanley Bronstein. Career-wise, I'm a certified public accountant and an attorney. And there's a story behind all that as well. But somewhere along the way, life kind of shifted as I was turning around 50, and I started making a bunch of changes in my life. I'll give you the real quick backup. Okay. You talk about things that happened to you. When I was 8 years old, my mother died. And in retrospect, I'm pretty sure she knew she was dying because she fed me as much knowledge as she could and worked with me as much as she could while she was still alive.
Okay.
Needless to say, that was a traumatic event that messed with my head in many ways.
Yeah.
When it was all said and done, I was living with my massively obese father, and both of us ate ourselves into oblivion.
Okay.
And if you look at my pictures from the time I was 8, I got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So going through the whole thing, when I was around the age of 28, this is where we're going to start getting into life lessons to tell people. Start getting to around 28, I was maxed out at 367 pounds, and I'm only 5'7". So that I was a pretty big boy back then. So when I was in law school, my last year in law school, I went to Weight Watchers and I started losing weight.
Okay.
Lost 100 pounds. But the changes I made weren't permanent.
Okay.
Some of them were, but most of them were not. So, but I got down skinny enough where women were interested in dating me. I got married, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
But I didn't totally change. I didn't totally make permanent changes. So
Okay.
the results I got didn't stick.
Gotcha.
That's another thing I learned. Temporary changes yields temporary results. Permanent
Yes.
changes yields permanent results.
Hmm. True.
Okay. So fast forward to 2009, February 1st, 2009, not
Okay.
January 1st, February 1st. I had made some New Year's resolutions that year that this was going to be the year I finally got in shape. Needless to say, I didn't keep my New Year's resolution. So February 1st is rolling around. It's 4 months before my 50th birthday, but you're going to be turning 50. You start thinking. And I said, Stanley, you're wasting your potential.
Okay.
I mean, I had a successful career. That was all going great,
Hmm.
but I was 320 pounds. My knees hurt, but they didn't give out yet. I hadn't had a heart attack yet. I hadn't had a stroke yet.
Right.
I wasn't on high blood pressure medication, but I probably should have been. All these things. I was a mess.
Hmm.
And so I said, I woke up and I was thinking about it. And I told my wife, I turned to her and I said, I'm cooked. I'm done. I'm going to start making changes in my life right now.
Okay. What was the trigger? What made you come out so definitively and say this is what
Fed
I'm
up.
doing?
Fed up.
Got you.
I mean, I've been thinking about it before. As I tell people, did it take me 49 and a half years to change my life, or did it take me an instant?
Mm,
And the answer is it took me 49 and a half years to get to the point where I was ready to do it in an instant.
got you.
So another thing I've learned is it's all about getting ready. When you're ready, you can change your life instantly.
Yes.
It might take time for things to happen, but the triggering event was instantaneous. So I don't care where you're at right now. You want to change your life, you can change your life right now.
Right.
So
Yep.
I said, I told her, I said, I'm cooked. I'm done. I'm going to stop tolerating BS in my life, although that wasn't the word I used.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to stop tolerating BS in my life. And I said, the number one person I'm going to stop tolerating it from is myself.
Okay.
Taking personal responsibility there.
Yes.
Another good point.
Okay.
Because the bottom line is, if I don't make changes now, I am going to be dead.
Okay.
Because the triggering thing, you asked what was the triggering thing? I asked myself a question. If I keep going the way am I going, where am I going to be 5 years from now?
Right. Fair
And the
question.
answer was dead. And I did not like that answer. So telling yourself the truth, not BSing yourself, telling yourself the truth.
Hmm.
And I said, the changes I'm going to make. I said, I'm going to start learning to eat better right now. And I'm going to start exercising every day right now. And my exercise of choice is going to be walking.
Okay.
I picked something that was easy to do, did not need a lot of equipment that you
Right.
could do anywhere. So I said, it's going to be walking. I'm going to start doing that. And I immediately gave up alcohol.
Okay.
I won't say I was an alcoholic, but I will say I was definitely drinking too much.
Okay.
I quit drinking. I quit drinking soda pop.
Okay.
Those 2 liter bottles of soda?
Yeah.
I was drinking Diet Pepsi, caffeine free. So, I was kidding myself. Oh, it's diet and it's caffeine free. Got to be good. No, it's not. The 2 liter bottles, I was drinking 3 of those a day.
Wow.
Well, haven't had one of those in 17 years. Um, so, and I started making the changes and I started walking. It was not easy at first.
Hmm.
A lot of the walking, because I was so big, my legs hurt. I went to a pool and I started walking in the pool, up and down laps in the pool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And first I started out, I did it for 30 minutes, then I did it for an hour, then I did it for 2 hours. And I made a goal that for my 50th birthday, which was in 4 months, that I wanted to do a 5 hour pool walk.
Okay.
And I was going to do that. And um, so I did. I did do the 5 hour pull walk, and it wasn't that bad. Then I started, and by then I had lost by in that 4 months I'd lost like 40 something, 50 pounds, and starting to feel better. So I started walking outside. And when I first started out, my street, I live at the top of a hill, so I was huffing and puffing when I was coming home
Yeah.
and everything. And now I do it routinely, no problems. But so I keep going, keep going, keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's funny. I went from being the biggest person in the room to the smallest person in the room. So that was kind of funny. And so, but everything stabilized, and that was all good.
Hmm.
So, a couple of things. What have I learned from the experience? I've learned three main things from the experience.
Okay.
The first one is I am more powerful than I ever imagined,
Love it.
because as confident, I've always been a confident guy. And I'm a CPA and an attorney, so I've got a little bit of confidence there. But would you believe me if I told you the experience of ultimately taking off over 220 pounds and keeping it off blew my mind?
Wow.
It it showed me that I'm more powerful than I ever imagined. So that's the first thing I learned. The second thing I learned, it made me ask a question. If I'm capable of doing this, what else is out there that I'm capable of doing that I haven't done yet?
Love that question.
Okay. So I started thinking really, really, really big. And then the third thing it taught me was that if I'm more powerful than I ever imagined, so is everyone else. I am no more special than you. You are no more special than me. I am no more special than any of your listeners. We are
Right.
all special. We all have the ability to be more than we ever imagined.
Right.
There are no perfect human beings. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. I'm not going to be the first one. You're not going to be the first one. I can promise you. So instead, I said, let's go for excellence. Excellence is you can always get better. No matter how good you are, you can always
Yep.
get better. I learned to, instead of being a perfectionist, I became what I call a good enoughist.
I like that.
Good enough is good enough. You want to get, to the point where it's good enough. And that's all that matters. I'm a long-term thinker.
Gotcha.
I learned to stop thinking about the short term. See, every time I used to go to Chinese buffets,
Okay.
every time I went to the Chinese buffet, I was short term, I was giving myself short term gratification. I was satisfying myself.
Okay.
And then I'd feel like crap. I'd get fatter, my health would get worse and worse and worse. So in the long term, I was mortgaging my future.
Yes.
So I said, I need to put the long term ahead of the short term. So I learned that repeated short term self discipline leads to long term rewards.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't need to go to the Chinese buffet. I don't need to eat that crap. I don't need to do this. Instead, I will benefit. People tell me, look at all the things you gave up, Stanley. And the answer is, I didn't give up anything. I gained everything.
Right.
It's all in how you look at it. So
Yep.
the third thing is taking personal responsibility. I didn't blame my parents. I didn't blame my mother for dying when I was 8 years old. I didn't blame my
Mhm.
wife. Didn't blame anybody else.
Right.
It's on me. And I learned something else. I didn't even blame myself.
Hmm.
Blame is irrelevant. All that matters is, man, you got a problem. What are you going to do to fix it? And are you going to do it?
Yep. And yeah, blame does nothing to change your circumstance. It just gives you something to point at.
Okay. Then another thing was I started focusing on what was possible.
Okay.
You know, I said, look, I started dreaming big. I started thinking big, bright, bold,
Yes.
powerful.
Yes.
Look what I can be.
Sure.
I started dreaming audaciously.
I
Um,
love it.
so more dreams. Then I changed my perspective. Is okay. Everybody says I have to lose weight. I have to eat better. I have to exercise. No, you don't. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
Because when you say you have to do it, it becomes an obligation. Instead, it is my privilege to eat better. It
Yes.
is my privilege to exercise. It is my privilege to get in shape. Then, you know, then it it stops being an obligation and it becomes a
Yes.
privilege. It's something you get to do. I stopped saying I have to do. I started saying I get to do.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that makes a big difference. And one of the things that crystallized that in my mind was there was a woman I met in 2007 in Honolulu.
Okay.
Her name was Peggy Chun. She was an artist. By the time I met her, she was completely bedridden on a ventilator.
Okay.
She had Lou Gehrig's disease and she couldn't move. She couldn't get out of bed.
Hmm.
The way she communicated was with her eye movements. Trained people would hold up an eye chart and they could read her eye movements and she could spell out words. And that was how she communicated.
Hmm.
So basically, for me to have a 30-minute conversation with her took about 2 hours. But this woman, at the time when I met her, I thought to myself, if I ever get like that, please take a pillow and put it over my head and take me out. And instead, this woman had joy for life.
Right.
She said, my grandkids are coming over later today. We're going to paint. We're going to do this. Tell me about your project you're doing. I was doing a thing where I was going around the entire United States
Okay.
interviewing people for a book I was writing. She said, that sounds so exciting. I wish I could go with you, and all these things. And
I got
so,
no,
go.
no, I was going to say, I think when as I listened to the journey, um, it seemed like you got a lot of reminders along the way, right, as you're passing through, and I do love the fact that you talked about those temporary changes that you made, but they were permanent, so the problem didn't go away, right? And I think
Yeah.
this really goes back to that it is an ongoing process that we are going to be tested. Like you don't like if you stop to join a gym and you want to work out, you don't finally okay, I'm worked out, right, and it's done. It's an ongoing process. And I think what you've described there it does beautifully capture that.
But thank you. But it's not even a test. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
See, and you say how I got messages all along the way. The universe wants to help us. We just have to slow down enough to listen to it. Last year alone, I walked 5,166 miles.
Wow.
That is, if I started in Los Angeles, I would have ended up somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
After crossing those things. I have walked over the last 17 years, I have walked 30% of the distance to the moon.
Wow. Wow.
And this is all from a person who couldn't walk. So what the point of that is, that's how much more powerful we are than we
Right.
ever imagined.
Right.
That's the point I'm trying to make. It's
Yeah.
not that you don't have to do what I do, but the world, there's already one Stanley. The world does not need another Stanley. But the world needs you to be the best you that you
I love it.
can be.
Love it.
That's what it needs.
Right. That's right.
So
So what would you tell someone who feels that it's too late to change?
it's not. If you're not dead, it's not too late to change. But you have to be willing. And you have to believe you can do it. And I'm telling you right now, I don't even know you, and I know you can do it. And then you need to put new habits in place, self-discipline, good habits, positive habits, intentional habits. You need to break your old bad habits. For me, it was going to Chinese buffets. It was drinking too much.
Right.
It was sitting on my butt too much. It was all those things. Break those habits, form new positive habits. And when you do that, you can create a life where everything flows and everything's much easier and you're much more powerful. And then putting that all together on a different level, if we all would do that, can you imagine what kind of world we would live in
Yeah, it'd be powerful one.
if we all started putting it together? The things we could accomplish in this world. This is a great world we live in.
Of course it is.
It's
Absolutely.
also a crazy world. It's
It's
also
one of those things you gotta take the good and the bad, right?
yes, but I that doesn't mean you have to live with the bad. I think we can
No.
change it.
Yeah.
I believe we can, and I believe we will. I believe we're in the process of doing it, but it's not going to happen in the next 5 minutes.
I think Stanley, the way I look at it is like life is a series of hills and valleys, right? And so when you run into bad things, so like the top of the hill, there's celebration, there's peace, there's satisfaction, fulfillment, joy. But in the valley, things aren't so good and they hurt and they're painful. And so, if life is a continuum, we are going to go down that valley eventually. The key is getting out as fast as we possibly can, and that's where I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know how to get out.
And well, there's an old story. You may have heard this, you may not have. A man falls down in a hole and he's screaming up on the street. He's screaming up at passersby, "Help me out!" A pastor walks by. He says, "Father, can you help me? I'm stuck in this hole." The pastor says, "I'll say a prayer for you, my son," and then he keeps
Mhm.
walking. Then a pharmacist walks by. He
Yep.
says, "Can you help me?" He says, "Here's a prescription." He writes a prescription, throws that in the hole, keeps walking. Doctor walks by, does the same thing. Then his friend Jim walks by and he says, "Jim, I'm stuck down here in this hole. Can you help me get out?" Jim jumps down in the hole with him
Okay.
and he says, "What are you doing in here?" He says, "Are you nuts? Now we're both stuck down here in this hole." And he says, "Yes, but I've been down here before and I know the way out. Follow me." So the answer is, I know the way out.
Mm.
I've been down there. I know it. I get it. So yeah, we all can do tremendous things.
Right. Right. Right.
Gotta want to. So go ahead.
I was gonna ask you, what surprised you most about your weight loss journey?
Well, a couple of things. One, that I was able to do it, and this as well as I did. And the
Hmm.
second thing is that it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Once my
Mm.
mindset shifted, it became
Yes,
easier. And living the way I live, it's not that hard.
got you.
And it really it's you would. But if I would have looked at it 17 years ago, what? I can't eat my chicken wings anymore. I can't eat pork anymore. I'm not going to eat pasta anymore. You know, I'm not going to do all these. I'm not going to eat cheeseburgers anymore. What are you
Right, right, right. Life has
What are you talking?
changed.
Yeah, what are you talking about? It's actually easier. What was hard was walking around at 367 pounds. That's what was hard.
Mm, good
This
point.
is so much easier, and we can do it.
Got you.
And remember when I said that it made me question what else is out there waiting for me to do?
Yeah, I
Well,
love
the
that.
answer to that question was I was supposed to create this system, the way of excellence, which is on my website, and I have 6 of my books on there. They're all free. I make them all available for free, so your listeners can go there and get them for free.
Yep.
I created something called the Million-Pound Weight Loss Challenge.
Okay.
The goal is to get 50,000 or more people who need to lose weight to lose 20 or more pounds each. That'd be 1,000,000 pounds. And I made it free as well. People can go up to that website, Million-Pound Weight Loss Challenge, and they can sign up. There's all kinds of free resources,
Yeah.
all kinds of great information. You can track your weight. I think
Wow.
it's all about learning how to eat properly
Yep.
and starting to move. And if we do that, everybody would be so much healthier. So that was my big, audacious
That's,
goal.
Well, I was going to say what you described is very audacious in itself, which is awesome. So, congratulations on the journey, Stanley. I could tell it's certainly life changing for you in so many ways. And one last thing I wanted to ask is if you were to sort of personally define what an audacious life means to you today, what would you say?
Maximizing your potential, figuring out what you're capable of doing, and then doing it. See, I came to the conclusion that I am capable of changing the world one life at a time. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm working toward doing. That's what I'm doing. That's what an audacious life is. Help other people, help yourself, help other people, care about other people, care about yourself.
Yes.
Take care of yourself, take care of other people, make the world better. Everybody wants the world to be better, and
Yep.
they're all waiting for somebody to go out there and change it and
Change
make it
it.
better.
That's right.
And the answer is, hey, we're the ones we've been waiting for.
That's right. That's right. I said many times that as powerful as a tsunami is, it starts with a single raindrop, right? That's what
right.
it is. So
it starts with a butterfly flapping its wings on the other side
there you
of the
go.
earth.
There you go.
That's what it starts with.
That's awesome. Stanley, give the website again one more time for our listeners, will you?
There's two websites, if I can.
Yeah.
The first one is thewayofexcellence.com. Thewayofexcellence.com.
Okay.
That has my whole system there. There's videos explaining the whole system, takes you in detail. There's 6 of my books. They're all available there for free. I made them free because it's my way of giving back. I want to help people. If you want to contact me or work with me directly, there's a link on the bottom. You can click that. You can write me. Then the second website is called millionpoundweightlosschallenge.com. That's million like the number. millionpoundweightlosschallenge.com. That site is a little bit different. You have to create an account to use the site.
Okay.
I made it a membership only thing, but it's a free membership. There's no charge.
Right.
But I made it membership only because I wanted to be able to control spammers. I wanted to be able to keep bad guys out of there. Because think about it. If you're making a website that's for people who are overweight, the last thing I need to do is let people go on there who are going to start making fun of overweight people.
Yeah. No, you're right.
So I purposely did that so that I would have total control over the content.
Got you.
What's there. And so thewayofexcellence.com and millionpoundweightlosschallenge.com. Both of those are there.
I was going to say what we'll do. We'll make sure that those details are in the show notes below, and encourage our listeners to reach out to you directly. Stanley, this has been awesome. I do appreciate the insights and I love the personal journey and the dedication to it. But the piece that really stands out for me is what you do afterwards, right? You're turning around and you're helping others and encouraging others and empowering other people. And that's huge. And so I want to first off acknowledge that, but also thank you for doing so. And as well, thank you for being a guest today here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Back we are here on the podcast, and I gotta tell you, there's a lot to sit with this. There's a lot really with this when you think about all that he had gone as accomplished. There's so much, and I've got to go back to that moment where Stanley said, he woke up and told himself, "I'm done. I'm not tolerating this anymore. Not from anyone else, but for myself, but for himself. That's it. He was doing it for. That's really powerful because that real shift didn't start with the weight. It started with ownership. He didn't blame his past. He didn't blame his circumstances. He didn't even blame himself. He just asked one simple question. What am I going to do about it? And I think that's where a lot of us get stuck, right? We spend time, so much of our time pointing at the problem instead of stepping into the solution. But what Stanley showed us is that once your mindset shifts, the work doesn't get harder. It actually gets clearer. And that leads us right into this week's audacious insight, because what we heard from Stanley isn't unique. It's something we're all seeing play out in real time all around us. It's time for an audacious insight where we take a quick look at something happening in the real world that reflects the power of bold thinking and intentional action. Now, when David Goggins transformed his life, he didn't start with elite training. He started with accountability, confronting his habits, and committing to disciplined daily action. He went from struggling with obesity and self-doubt to becoming one of the world's toughest endurance athletes. What changed wasn't his body, it was his mindset and his refusal to make excuses. Ownership isn't about where you start, it's about where you decide from this moment forward. If you want to connect with Stanley, check out his work at The Way of Excellence and the £1 Million Weight Loss Challenge. Everything he's doing, it's really what's about he's helping people take that first step and stay consistent with it. And if this conversation hit you in any way, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Make sure you're following the podcast, leave a review, and keep showing up for yourself, because the truth is, the moment you stop tolerating less is the moment everything starts to change. Thanks so much for being here, and until next time, keep living life audaciously.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.